In a dimly lit room, 4 mercenaries lay lifeless on the floor, making Andy contemplate her numerous deaths and wonder if this is her final demise. It began a day earlier in Morocco, when Andy met with Booker to discuss a potential job. Andy, reluctant to return to a life of combat, agreed to at least meet with the rest of the team at their hotel. On the way there, Andy noticed some girls accidentally including her in a photo, prompting her to borrow their phone and erase any trace of their presence. At the hotel, they reunited with the couple, Nicky and Joe, after a long separation. While the guys eagerly embraced the job opportunity, Andy remained skeptical, wary of a man named Copley, and sticking to their rule of not working with the same employer twice. Ultimately, her team convinced her to join Booker for a meeting with Copley, just to hear what he had to say. As time passed, Andy and Booker sat outside at a cafe while Nicky and Joe kept watch from the hotel window, ready for anything that might come their way. But little did they know, this meeting would lead to unexpected twists and challenges they couldn't have foreseen. Copley shows up and shares his story. He took a break from working for the CIA to take care of his sick wife, but after she passed away, he couldn't go back to that life. Now, he funds these kinds of missions himself and wants their team to take on a new job. This mission involves rescuing hostages in South Sudan, and when Copley explains how their efforts could make a big difference, Andy finally agrees. The team flies to South Sudan and waits for nightfall to begin their operation. They silently take down the guards one by one and slip through the fence, eliminating a few more enemies. Using a small explosive, they breach the building's door. However, their shock turns to horror when they find no hostages inside. It becomes clear that they've been set up, and suddenly, a group of soldiers storms in, opening fire. The team falls to the ground, blood spreading around them. Believing the team is defeated, the soldiers turn away, unaware of what's happening next. To everyone's astonishment, the team's bodies start healing rapidly, pushing out all the bullets. They quickly rise from the ground and use their combat skills to defeat the soldiers, even if it means getting hurt in the process. Copley witnesses all of this through security cameras, catching Andy's attention, who promptly destroys the cameras. The following morning, the team buries their blood-stained clothes in the sand and discusses their next steps. Andy insists they must track down Copley and eliminate him, because he now knows their secret. They are ancient warriors with incredible regenerative powers who work as mercenaries to assist people in need. The team faces a critical decision, balancing the need to protect their extraordinary abilities and the mission they've dedicated themselves to for centuries. As the team locates Copley, Andy decides she's had enough of fighting for the world. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, American soldier Niall is on a mission to rescue a group of possibly captive women. She finds them, and they quietly direct her towards the man responsible. Niall and her team storm the building, and she swiftly shoots the man in the chest. However, he manages to fatally cut her throat before succumbing to his injuries. One of Niall's teammates rushes to her aid, but it's too late, and she dies. While the team is sleeping on a train, they all start having dreams of Niall's death. Strangely, in the medic tent, Niall is alive but dreaming of the team. They wake up and realize these dreams mean there's another immortal like them out there. This frustrates Andy, who wants to finish their mission quickly. However, the others convince her that this is a significant sign and that they must find the Niall. Andy agrees to go after Niall while the rest work on tracking down Copley. Their new quest begins, driven by the discovery of another immortal warrior. They made plans to meet up in France later. Back in the Nile, she notices her friends are acting strangely towards her because she doesn't have a scar from her injury. The incident is reported, and the higher-ups decide to send Niall to Germany for some tests. An upset Niall returns to her tent, and her mood worsens when she finds her friends have already packed her things. Meanwhile, in England, a pharmaceutical executive named Merrick talks about stem cell research to a wealthy audience. He claims he can cure diseases and extend human life with the right investment. Later, Merrick meets with Copley, who shows him a video of Andy's team coming back to life. However, Merrick is skeptical. He needs solid proof because people might think the video was edited. So he asks Copley to capture the Immortal team and bring them to him. As Niall waits for a helicopter to arrive, Andy springs into action. She moves with lightning speed, neutralizing all the guards in her path. Then, surprisingly, she turns her skills toward Niall, quickly subduing her as well. Shortly after, Niall regains consciousness in the trunk of a military vehicle driven by Andy. She attempts to escape by kicking out the back, and when she tumbles to the ground, Andy stops the vehicle and goes after her. Niall tries to flee, but Andy prevents her by shooting the back of her head. Andy patiently waits for Niall to revive, and when she does, Niall responds by stabbing Andy in the shoulder. Unfazed, Andy informs Niall that if she wants answers, she must come with her. Later, Andy and Niall board a plane bound for France, which is currently involved in a trafficking operation. Andy contacts her team to let them know she has Niall, but they still lack information about Copley. Before departing, Andy destroys her phone. She then shares some information with Niall about her Immortal team and the mystery of why they can't die. But Niall finds these vague answers unsatisfying. While Andy dozes off, Niall ties her to a chair and points a gun at the pilot to force him to turn the plane around. When Andy wakes up, she communicates with the pilot in Russian, instructing him to pretend to be dead so she can distract Niall. Andy pretends to shoot the pilot, causing the plane to nosedive. In a desperate moment, Andy claims she can fly the plane, and Niall reluctantly sets her free. Thankfully, the pilot regains control, steering them back to France. However, Niall and Andy engage in a heated altercation. With her many years of combat experience, Andy quickly overpowers Niall, inflicting serious wounds to subdue her. As Niall witnesses her injuries miraculously heal, Andy finally persuades her to cooperate. Later in France, the team gathers in an old abandoned church for dinner, where Niall gets to know them better. Booker became immortal in the 18th century. Nicky and Joe were once enemies during the Crusades, and Andy, the oldest, doesn't remember her exact age. The team also reveals that immortals can eventually die, but it's very rare. Over time, their wounds stop healing, signaling the end of their immortality. After dinner, everyone goes to sleep except for Andy, who stays in the living room. In the middle of the night, Niall has a terrifying nightmare that wakes everyone up. She describes seeing a woman trapped in a coffin, drowning in the sea. The team explains that the woman was Quinn, another immortal who used to fight alongside Andy. Back then, they were trying to save women accused of witchcraft, but were caught and accused of witchcraft themselves. The town soon realized that Andy's team couldn't die, so they hatched a special plan. They divided the women and locked Quinn in an iron box, tossing it into the ocean. As a result, Quinn endured a never-ending cycle of drowning, reviving, and dying. This tragic story deeply upsets Niall, who rushes outside, followed by Andy. Andy reassures Niall that the team is all she has now. Suddenly, they hear the arrival of Copley's soldiers. As Copley monitors everything from a surveillance van, the women return indoors, only to find Joe and Nicky missing, and Booker severely injured by a grenade blast, which takes some time to heal. Niall stays with Booker while Andy confronts the soldiers. Once again, she leaps into battle without concern for her safety, swiftly defeating all the attackers and prompting Copley to flee in fear. After the fight, the group packs up and begins searching for a new hiding place. Meanwhile, Joe and Nicky find themselves in a van surrounded by soldiers who mock their relationship and prevent them from sharing a kiss. Soon they arrive at an airport, and when the van doors open, it's revealed that Joe and Nicky managed to overpower and kill all the soldiers, even though they were still handcuffed. Copley arranges for them to board a plane to England, where they are taken to see Merrick. Merrick, a cruel scientist, sadistically stabs Joe and Nicky for his amusement. He explains his plan to subject them to experiments in his quest to extend the human lifespan. Nicky and Joe are sedated and taken to a laboratory, while Merrick insists that Copley must bring the rest of Andy's team to him. Back with Andy, Booker, and Niall, they seek refuge in an abandoned mine, where Niall is astonished to discover the ancient treasures and original artwork hidden there. As Booker opens up about the pain of outliving his children and enduring immortality while loved ones pass away, Andy notices that her wounds aren't healing. She leaves the mine to go to a local pharmacy, where she buys medical supplies. Surprisingly, the cashier offers to help her dress her wounds in the back room. When Andy wonders why the woman is helping a stranger without asking any questions, the woman explains that she expects Andy to pay forward the act of kindness to someone else someday. This leaves Andy reflecting on the people she's lost in her long life. In Merrick's laboratory, Joe and Nicky are securely strapped to chairs, enduring endless samples and tests. Copley suggests that Merrick has gathered enough data, so there's no need to keep the pair captive. However, Merrick is determined to continue his experiments until he gets the results he wants. Nicky attempts to tell the doctor that they've been subjected to similar experiments in the past with no success, but the doctor disregards him. Sometime later, in the middle of the night, Niall wakes up from a troubling dream and decides to step outside for some fresh air. She discovers Andy going through her phone and shares stories about her own family. Sadly, Andy can't recall much about her past. Soon, Booker joins them with news of Copley's location, and they quickly set off to confront him. The group's determination to rescue Joe and Nicky from Merrick's clutches intensifies as they prepare to take action. Arriving at the address, Booker decides to check the area, while Andy arms Niall with a weapon. However, Niall surprises them by stating that she no longer wants to help. She wishes to spend as much time as possible with her family before it's too late. Understanding Niall's feelings, Andy lets her take the car, only requesting that she dispose of the remaining weapons along the way. As Niall drives away, she opens the trunk and realizes that Andy gave her the wrong bullets for her weapon. Meanwhile, at the facility, Andy and Booker quietly infiltrate the building and head upstairs in search of Copley. They confront him, holding him at gunpoint. Unexpectedly, Booker shocks Andy by shooting her in the side and restraining her. Booker reveals that he orchestrated this betrayal because he believes it's a way to end their suffering. He hopes Merrick can find a way to kill them, and Copley is eager for the cure that might have saved his wife. However, when Booker notices that Andy isn't healing, panic sets in. Soon, a group of guards arrives, restraining both Andy and Booker. Copley voices his concerns, fearing that Andy may not survive any experiments Merrick has in mind. The team's situation takes a dire turn as they confront not only their enemies, but also the consequences of their immortality. Merrick, not caring about their well-being, orders the guards to escort Andy and Booker to the same testing room as Joe and Nicky, demanding quick results. Meanwhile, Copley finds himself in a tight spot when Niall confronts him, showcasing her unique abilities to pressure him into revealing the truth. Copley confesses that he spent years researching the team and witnessed all the good they've done for humanity. He initially believed that subjecting them to testing would benefit the world, but now he acknowledges his mistake. Niall persuades Copley to lead her to the team. In no time, they reach Merrick's building, and Copley grants Niall access. As she ascends to the upper floors, she's shot but quickly recovers. Niall fearlessly takes on the guards one by one, eliminating them until she finds the correct room. Niall successfully frees her friends, telling Andy that she's seen the impact of her work, confirming she has a cause worth fighting for. With a newfound purpose, the team prepares to confront the challenges ahead. Nicky and Joe are livid with Booker for his betrayal. Andy, however, urges them to set their anger aside for now. As a team, they make their way through the building, engaging in fierce battles with the guards. Despite losing her immortality, Andy continues to demonstrate her exceptional combat skills. An explosion rocks their surroundings. Andy coerces a guard into revealing Merrick's location. They rush to Merrick's office only to find it empty and the elevator is descending. The men take off in pursuit of Merrick, while Niall remains with Andy. To their dismay, the descending elevator is a trap, and Merrick confronts them wielding an axe. Niall employs a clever deception, pretending to shoot Andy. This diversion allows Andy to wrest the axe from Merrick's grip and strike him. Niall then tackles Merrick, and they crash through a window, landing on a car. This fall proves fatal for both Merrick and Niall. In a bold and desperate move, they eliminate Merrick, but it comes at a heavy cost. The guys soon rush to help Niall, and once Andy joins them, they leave together before the police arrive. Later, as they enjoy lunch, they discuss what punishment Booker should face for his betrayal. Niall keeps him company and shares that they've arranged to fake her death to provide closure to her family. Booker acknowledges her resilience and suggests she'd be a valuable addition to the team. Andy has a private conversation with Booker, revealing his punishment will be spending 100 years in solitude. Now that Andy is no longer immortal, it means they'll never meet again. They bid farewell with a hug. The team then confronts Copley, assigning him the task of securing jobs for them and erasing any traces of their existence as his punishment. 6 months later in France, Booker returns to his apartment and is taken aback to find Quinn waiting for him.